Hey yo, welcome everyone. My name is Sketch Perez, and for today's sketch class, we will be doing a Thanksgiving still life scene. A Thanksgiving still life scene. I found the photo on Pinterest, pretty cool. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we want to do is at the top right, you're going to see the plus button. When you press that, you're going to see a bunch of different sizes here for your canvas. The one that I almost always use is paper. The reason that I do paper size is because it is the exact dimensions of a piece of paper. That means that when I go to print, it's going to be very similar to what I drew on my screen. Sometimes when you draw on sizes that are smaller, you're going to get pixelated and you're just going to get results that you're not happy with. So I go ahead and I use the paper size. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab my reference. I'm going to go here, add, and actually in my canvas, I press the reference. I'm going to add my reference. You guys can just follow along. It's not necessary to have a reference on the physical device. I just like to add it so that way you guys can also follow along here. Okay, here we go. So one of the first things I want to do is I see a lot of great colors here, including a white pumpkin. And so I want to first color my background so that everything else can kind of stand out from that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to color in that wall, and it may look gray depending on the screen that you're looking on it with, but it's more on the like turquoise side. So what we're going to do is we're going to move our cursor more into the blue area. So there's different ways that you can get color. The way that I usually do is values here. So if you press the top right, you'll be able to change your colors. Then you press value, and here you can adjust. So I'm going to move the hue into more in the middle of between blue and green. I'm going to put the saturation up a little bit, and then I'm going to bring the brightness down. Let's see how this looks. Okay, not bad. And for the pen, I am using dry ink. So you can find dry ink if you go to inking on the left hand side, and then you go to dry ink. This is all under the brush menu. So inking, dry ink. You can use any brush you like. That's one that I'm particular about. I like that brush. I use it a whole lot. So I think that's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and color my whole background, the entire background, in this one color. I'm going to bring it about, I would say 2/3 of the way down. And then there's a difference between the wall and then the actual table that this is on. So it looks to me like it's a little bit more desaturated, meaning it's less colorful and slightly lighter. Okay, I'm gonna make my brush a little bit smaller. Make a straight line across the paper, and then I'll go ahead and fill this in. Yes. Now this is going to give me a great base, and the colors are really going to pop from here. I'm happy with that. So for every other element that I have, so there is a box, there's 4 pumpkins here, and then there's 1 pumpkin in the front. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 objects. I'm going to make every single thing on a different layer. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, if this is too confusing, you could just draw it all on the same layer. The reason why I use different layers is that if I have to move anything around, if I have to adjust something, then I can start and move back to one of the other layers, and I don't have to mess with anything else. Okay, so I'm going to work from the back to the front. So on the very next layer, layer 1 was my background. For my layer 2, I'm going to go ahead and start with the crate, the big crate. And so it's a brown color. This crate is a brown color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with orange, and then I'm going to keep the saturation fairly in the middle, and then I'm going to play around with my brightness. Browns can either be orange or maybe somewhere in the reds. It depends on what kind of tree the wood is from. So here we go. That's good for me. So now I'm gonna draw my line to where the box is. Be careful to look at my drawing, or look at my reference rather, and be as precise as I can so that my proportions are correct and everything else aligns. If I get this part wrong, the rest of my drawing can go off. Okay, so that's I'm blocking everything out now. I'm gonna go ahead and let's fill it in. We'll give it the dimension it needs in a little bit, but right now we're simply gonna block out all of our objects. Okay, there's our crate. On the next layer, so on layer 3, I'm gonna go to the white pumpkin. So if I look at the pumpkin, I'm gonna keep it at this orange. I'm gonna bring the brightness all the way up, and then I'm gonna bring the saturation down. I'm gonna leave it a little bit, I'm gonna keep it with a little bit of hue, a little bit of that orange hue. I don't want it completely white. I want it to have a little bit of color. So from here, I'm just gonna go ahead and block off this white pumpkin. Okay. I'm just gonna make the outside of our pumpkin. Cool. I like that. I'm gonna go ahead and just color it in so that way we can know how much space it takes. Okay, that works. Next, I'm gonna go on to the pumpkin in front of it on the right. That looks like a very saturated orange. It even goes into red a little bit. So we're gonna move the hue into the red area. We're gonna bring the saturation all the way up, and we're gonna keep the brightness up where it's at. Now I'm gonna draw the outline of this pumpkin. Now, here's why I said to make different layers. As I blocked off this pumpkin, I'm seeing that in my reference photo, there's more contrast between these two pumpkins. So I'm actually gonna make this orange pumpkin smaller. Because I'm on a separate layer, I can adjust this pumpkin without adjusting anything else. So I'm gonna press on the cursor up at the top, and now I can adjust this size. And I'm gonna bring this down. I can either keep it uniform, so that way when I edit it moves uniformly, or I can do it freeform, and that'll allow me to move horizontally or vertically as I see fit. So I'm just gonna bring it down a little bit. I would say, well, it's under the stem, so somewhere there. Maybe I can even bring this down a bit. Somewhere there. Okay, I feel comfortable with that, and I'm gonna go ahead and just round it off a bit. Good. There's my second pumpkin. Okay, I'm happy with that shape. I'm gonna go over it later. I'm gonna add more color to it, but that's where I'm at so far. Pretty happy with it. Okay, now the next one. So I'm gonna go over to layer 5. Now this pumpkin here, I'm looking at it, it looks more in the yellow space, so I'm gonna move it to yellow, and it looks a bit pale, so I'm gonna move the saturation down. It's not white, but it's not a rich yellow either. So I'm gonna put it somewhere here in the middle, and now we're gonna go ahead and block off this pumpkin. Okay, I like that. Now again, I'm looking at it, I drew my pumpkin a little bit too much to the left. So I can go back to my cursor and move the whole pumpkin. There you go, that's a bit closer to where it's actually at. That looks good to me. Okay, Let's go on to layer 6. Layer 6. Now we're gonna do a smaller pumpkin. I'm gonna sample the orange that I've already used. So if I press the little box on the left hand side, right here, I can then sample any color I want and use that for my drawing. Now I'm gonna start at that color, but I'm actually gonna bring the opacity down, and I'm gonna move the hue more into yellow because it's not as orange as the other one over there. And then this one I'm gonna block off as well. It's at an interesting angle, so be mindful of that when you're drawing it. Be mindful of the angle. Make sure that you're consistently looking at your reference. A lot of times I'll see students just looking down for minutes and minutes and minutes, and time is just passing by, and when they look up they realize that what they have on their paper is not necessarily what's up on the reference. So you want to make sure that you're constantly looking up at the reference, so that way you can get something as close as possible. Okay, I feel comfortable with that. Now we're going to move on to the last layer, layer 7, and here we can go ahead and make our last pumpkin. Now this pumpkin looks very similar to the last pumpkin we did, so I'm going to go ahead and just block it off with the same exact color. Okay, so there's our pumpkin. There's our pumpkin. Here's our scene. Okay, look at the proportions on your paper and then look at the proportions on the reference. You want to make sure that they're similar. If this part is off, then the whole rest of your artwork is going to be off. It's why we block everything off first. We make sure that our composition looks good. We want to make sure that everything fits. Nothing is running off the paper in an unintentional way. And we have all these separate layers, so that way we can manipulate and edit them separately. Okay, so now we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna go back throughout all our layers and add the details. So again, I'm gonna sample this brown, and I'm gonna go ahead and start with the inside of it. I want to get these shadows, so I'm gonna take the brightness and move it all the way down. And mind you, I'm saying hue, saturation, brightness. That's what these things mean over here. We have H, S, and B. H stands for hue, S stands for saturation, and B stands for brightness. So I'm going to move my brightness down so that way we can get some of these shadows going. And I'm going to adjust my brush as well. I'm going to bring down the size of my brush so that way I can make these lines. So I'm going to draw one line going straight down, and then the other line is going to go at an angle, pretty much following the perimeter of my box. Okay, now I can go ahead and fill in some of this color in here. And then when it comes to the actual box, we want to make it a lighter brown to show where the shading ends. I'm gonna go back here, fill in this darker, go a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. All we're doing is colors on colors, colors on colors, lights and darks. Okay, bring this color up over here. Bring this color back in here. There we go. And there's a shadow back here as well. So it seems like the light's coming from the left side, and then the shadow is being created by the top and side of the box, also by the pumpkins in front of it. Okay, now to the actual front of the box, I'm going to go a little bit lighter and add some highlights. To the box. I want to add this detail back here. So it's a crate, so it actually has this line running through it here. And I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Cool. I feel good about that for now. I feel good to keep moving. So that was layer 2. I'm going to go back to layer 3, which is where I have the white pumpkin at. And before I start adding shading, I think I want to place the stem. So the stem is obviously a shade of brown, but it's more so on the yellower side. It's a little bit like almost eggshell, almost off-white. So it's this color, then towards the base has a little bit more color over here, and then it has some pretty harsh shadows on this side. Maybe. So there's the stem. There's our stem. Now we want to add some shadows. Add some shadows over here. There's a harsh shadow over here where the stem is. Maybe I could do that one a little bit darker. And then there's shadows all throughout here. So I'm just blocking things off. And as I continue my art, I'm adding more detail as I go along. But every time I add detail, it's only a little more. Sometimes we get discouraged because we're not necessarily seeing what we envision the final product to be. But all you have to do is just focus on where you're at right now, what the step is right this second, and trust the process. It will come out. Okay? So that was a shadow. Let's go ahead and bring some lighter shadows. We can blend this in a bit. And then I see a like highlighted area. Okay. And over here, I'm gonna bring the saturation all the way down, the white all the way up, and we have a highlight. So you see why I didn't want to use pure white earlier. I wanted to give it some color so that way we can add highlights. And even as I'm looking at it, I might want to give the pumpkin even slightly more color. That way it can really stand out. Okay, feeling pretty good about this pumpkin here. Like I said, we could come back and add more details to it, but this feels good to keep it moving. Okay, now the next one, the one to the front right. I'm gonna go ahead and sample the orange. I'm gonna go and make this more brown by bringing the saturation down and the brightness down a little bit. Let's start there. Let's give it less saturation. Okay, let's start there. So the pumpkin has, here it is. The stem kind of comes off to the left a little bit. And then it has more width at the bottom, at the base, than it does at the top. And then the pumpkin actually sticks out. It actually protrudes a bit. So I'm gonna give it a lighter hue here so we can differentiate the color. And then with the shadows, we're gonna make this part darker. And now with that same color, I'm gonna add shadows down here. Now, the white pumpkin that we just did and this pumpkin right here, they don't have too many ridges. They almost don't look like pumpkins when you're, and I didn't notice that until I started drawing it. But what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add a little bit of lines, even though they're there if you look at it. They're just not that pronounced. But I want it to look like a pumpkin. I'm gonna draw these thin lines here so you can kind of tell what's going on. And I'm gonna draw the highlighted area that I see here. Bring the saturation down. And we're gonna color this part here. Bring the saturation down some more. Here and here. Then around, I'm gonna continue giving more shadows. There we go. We're gonna add these shadows over here. And add some more shadows over here. Going to blend this in a little bit. You want to put darks and lights next to each other. You want there to be contrast. Okay, there's our second pumpkin. Actually, let me add some more shadows over here. You're constantly just playing with shadows and light. Shadows and highlights, shadows and highlights. Like I said, I feel pretty good about this second pumpkin. My first pass here, I'm really just trying to get the general idea, and then I'll go back and add more details to it. But this is my first pass. Okay, next. We're gonna do this middle pumpkin here. I wanna start with the stem. I'm gonna copy this color here. It has a very dark stem. And it kind of comes in this way. And then it goes and sticks up over here. That's pretty good. Let's go ahead and get that highlight while we're here. Make my brush even smaller. I'm gonna add a little bit of highlight here. Ooh, let's make it lighter. Ooh, is that too late? A little too late. Okay, we got another over here. Cool. Now, I want to add shadows. We're gonna first do. Now this one has sections. So So I'm going to go ahead and mark these sections off. Okay, almost done. There we go. There's our sections. So now, this one's gonna be easier. So now what I want to do is I want to start with shadows, and then I'll go ahead and take it back up. I'm gonna add some shadows here where the pumpkin is, where this other pumpkin is. Add shadows all throughout the bottom. This shadow kind of comes up over here. Like I said, the entire time you're looking at your reference, the entire time you are following along with what you see, making sure to look up. Don't spend long periods of time not looking at your reference. To be honest, half of drawing is not even drawing, it's looking, it's observing. Okay, that feels okay to me. Now let's add some lighter shadows. Get some contrast in between. And we're also going to add some highlights over here as well. What I love about still life and doing these fruits is that it really prepares you to draw pretty much anything. Okay. Feeling pretty satisfied with this one here too. I want to give it a little bit more. A little more color down here. Okay, make my brush bigger. Okay, that looks good to me. Now let's go to the last pumpkin here on this row, and then we'll do that final pumpkin. Okay, so again, I'm gonna go off of this stem, and the stem is actually here in the middle, and it stays here. It doesn't protrude outside the pumpkin. Lighter. We want to add some shadows. Alright, perfect. So now I'm gonna sample the orange, get a color that's a little bit darker here, and now I'm gonna draw the divisions of my pumpkin. Now time for the shadows. The shadows here are close to the edge of every section, plus the bottom. Kind of every section, I'm drawing it on the right side of every section and along the bottom. As we move to the back here, the whole thing is going to be in the shadow. Okay. We're going to add some highlights as well. helps with getting highlights is I don't only go lighter, I also move the hue either closer to yellow or away from yellow. If I'm doing highlights, I'm moving closer to yellow. If I'm doing shadows, I'm moving closer to blue, whether it's this way or this way, because this essentially just goes all the way around. Okay. All right. Hey, our piece is coming together. It's coming together, guys. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the last orange. Again, I'm just going to sample this orange over here. Excuse me. Last pumpkin. Our last pumpkin. So let's grab this stem. I'm going to start over here, and then this one does protrude. This one comes out this way. There we go. I'm gonna go darker. And then I'm gonna go a little lighter. And then even a little lighter than that. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna sample my last pumpkin, because these two pumpkins are pretty similar. Draw the inside here. I'm going to make my divisions. You'll see that I'm also consistently changing my brush size depending on what I need to do. Okay. Some deeper shadows here. So these shadows are more on the right side. Down here a little bit. And then more so over here on the back side. This is the part that's away from the highlights. Away from the sun, the light source. Right now I'm going to move it closer to yellow, bring the saturation down, and we're going to get some highlights in here. Man, it's looking pretty good. I think I'm ready to put the last final touches on it. And we'll be done here. So I see some shadows on the floor. So I'm going to add shadows to the floor here real quick. I'm going to sample the floor color. And I'm going to make it darker. That looks good. Do one over here. One over here. And one over here. That's good. My last pumpkin, I feel like I want to make it bigger. Yeah. That's good. Just slightly bigger. That looks good to me, guys. Now let's go back, and I'm just gonna add some light details to everything. Add some highlights here to the back. I want to add some texture here to the back, to the dark shadows as well. I'm just consistently going dark on light, dark on light, dark on light. Okay. Put a thin line of dark down here. back here is darker. Some lines going. And maybe you want to add a little more highlight to the front of the box. Okay. Feel good about the box. Let's go to the white pumpkin. I think here's where I'm going to take a little bit of creative freedom. I want it to look like a pumpkin. I don't want it just to feel like, I don't know what it looks like right now. So I'm going to draw my divisions as if it had more divisions. Maybe I'll make it lighter. But all the same, I want them to have the divisions. Well, I want them to look like pumpkins. So if the divisions help, there we go. I think the stem is a little bit hard to read as well. So let me maybe sample this stem. See if I can't fix that. Just adding these shadows here to the stem. I'm happier with that. And let's add a darker line next to the divisions so that it offsets. And then we'll go ahead and we'll do a lighter line as well. And then we'll go lighter. Okay, I'll take it. Maybe go a little bit darker with the shadows. Yeah, maybe like that. Okay. You have to find a space where you feel like, okay, this is good enough. I'm happy with this. I'm moving on. Okay, next is gonna be the orange one to the right. One thing that I keep seeing about it is just the curvature of it. It doesn't feel right. So let me fix that here. That's better. This one as well, it doesn't have those divisions, but I'm gonna add some divisions here. Give it some more curvature down at the bottom. And now we can do better about getting the shadow here. Yeah, honestly, I feel good about this one too. Oh, the stem. So let's add some shadows here. Maybe add some highlights. Cool. And this one feels good. Okay. Maybe a little bit of a darker line down here. And then there we go. So the yellow one now. This one I feel pretty good about already. Just gonna go ahead and put a little bit more highlights, a little bit more shadows. Okay, I'm adding the harsh shadow of where the stem is, and then I'm gonna add some more harsher shadows down here. Okay, I feel good about that one. This front pumpkin, again, just adding more shadows, more highlights. We already drew our objects. Now it's just about getting the shadows and the highlights just right. All we gotta do is put lights against darks. Okay, feel pretty good about that. Oh, let's get a darker orange over here. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So the last thing we want to do, well, you know what? I realized, let me go back to the second pumpkin we did, because I want to add a harsher shadow where the stem is, similar to how we did with the other pumpkins. So a harsh shadow here, and then we're going to bring harsher shadows down here too. Okay, that feels good to me. Last one. Again, this one's not bad. Just continuing to finalize. Okay. Lights and shadows, lights and shadows. And then we can add some deeper shadows here too. Yeah. As we're arriving at the end of our pumpkin, yes, this feels pretty good. Here is our pumpkin. This is our scene. This is our still life scene for Thanksgiving. Found this on Pinterest. Now, here's some extra credit. Using this same technique, build your own Thanksgiving scene. So now that we copied this one from Pinterest, let's go in our house and make our own still life. Maybe take a picture of it, use it as a reference, and give me your Thanksgiving still life. If you're in my class, go ahead and just bring it to my class. And if you're seeing this online, you can DM it to me on Instagram. I'm at Sketch Perez, or you could even send me an email at which is hello@sketchperez.com. hello@sketchperez.com or Sketch Perez on Instagram. And I would love to see your own still life. Maybe give me some characters. So maybe you love Game Boys and Air Jordan 1s and Pokemon cards, and maybe a old vintage camera. So give me objects that you like, that speak to you and your personality, and make your own still life. And these will be the things that you're thankful for, things that represent you. And yeah, there we go. This was our Thanksgiving sketch class. I hope you enjoyed. I can't wait to see your creations. please send them to me. I always love to see your work. And until next time, we'll maybe be thinking about doing another one for Christmas. So thank you very much for watching. Take care, guys. Goodbye.